This is Jack Whitby from JCAD Pictures, and today I'm talking about inspiration that I've taken from films about characters that we're going to have in our thriller films. So I took a lot of inspiration from many different types of characters from thriller films and pieced them all together to come up with my own and unique characters for the film. Now I might just add that I generally use thriller films for my inspiration, but I also got one which I picked out from something that I've loved and played all my life, which stood out to me, so I also picked that in, but that will come in later. So we'll start off with the main character, the protagonist, which his name is Jason. Jason, I chose this name. The reason I chose it is because it kind of feels natural to have someone, a big kind of tough guy, and it kind of rolls off the tongue, Jason. But for our main character of the thriller film, I took inspiration from Pulp Fiction. Jules Winnfield. He is a very lax character when he is in control of a situation, but can turn at any time and becomes angry if someone winds him up or gets in his way. At times he can get into a panic if something goes wrong, but overall is a character with courage and good teamwork skills in order to complete challenges. So I took inspiration from this for our protagonist, as our protagonist will show great courage in his tasks and have good teamwork skills before he lost his memory when he used to work with his partner, which is the mysterious biker. So the reason, as I said there, he kind of worked the plot twist throughout the film, which the audience will see further into the film, is that this biker guy is actually used to be the partner of our protagonist before the protagonist lost his memory. His memory got corrupted by the terrorists, and so these two used to work together, and they used to be very, very close with each other, and they had great teamwork skills with one another to take out. So what I mean by this is when they did secret government jobs, they would plan out a situation and know exactly what each other's strategy was and go through it. And they knew how to communicate well and how to each other's limits. So he had great teamwork skills, but also as he gets further into the film, he eventually has to go back to that terrorist camp, but not as one of them, as to destroy them and save his wife. So he has to perform great courage in order to do this. He also has great courage because he's being chased by a mysterious biker, and I don't know about you, but that would creep me out, and I would have to have courage in order to stay sane and not freak out. So he remains that, though he's scared, has that courage to keep powering forward and find out what is going on and why he's lost his memory. However, I also took inspiration from Annie Wilkes from Misery. She's actually more of the antagonist in the film, but I still picked bits out from her for my protagonist in our film. So she's a kind lady, but schizophrenic, and she has a split personality. This means at any time her happy mood can turn to a dangerous angry mood, which also brings tension to any scene she appears in. In our thriller films, our main protagonist has been captured by our protagonist has been captured by terrorists and therefore lost his memory, and his mind has now been corrupted by them, which the audience won't find out until later on in the film. However, we should still show signs of his corrupt mind throughout the film by having him have a split personality disorder, which he would connote to the viewer that something isn't right with this character and add tension to the scenes he is in and create confusion as the audience thought he was supposed to be the good guy in the film. So having him being schizophrenic, because this relates back to when he was captured by the terrorists, they messed with his mind, have corrupted him to believe what they believe in, and now he is split personality. So half of it is still joined with the terrorists, half of it is his past life, which he's getting flashbacks from. So one minute he will be his normal self, he'll be kind, trying to help, showing this great courage and doing the right thing, and the next minute he'll completely change it to complete anger and basically go insane and do something that you should never do, such as killing civilians or taking down a big monument like the London Eye, and completely changing everything. So having this split personality kind of keeps the audience on the edge once they find out he has it, because they're going to be like, oh no, is he going to turn again? Is he going to harm this person? Is he going to harm his wife throughout the film? And that creates real good tension. Now, this also shows that because it was used for an antagonist in Misery, it shows that our protagonist is also kind of an antagonist at times. So he's the protagonist, but because of the split personality, he can sometimes be shown as the antagonist. Much like the mysterious biker, who is shown as the antagonist, but occasionally is shown as the protagonist, because he's actually doing what he's doing for the right reasons. And lastly, for our protagonist, I took inspiration from Clarice from Silence of the Lambs. She is a young FBI trainee, and is very calm and brave in the situation she has to handle. Throughout the film, she shows great courage and never backs down. She is an underdog in the film, as she looks weak and is a young trainee. However, in the end she prevails. I took inspiration from her underdog style, as in my questionnaire people stated that they like to see the underdogs prevail and see a happy ending. Therefore, I thought it would be good to see our protagonist at a disadvantage, but be able to overcome the odds and save the day, as this is what our target audience would like to see from our protagonist in a thriller film. So having him be the underdog, be at a disadvantage with his lost memory, will actually create a bit more tension. He's the underdog, no one thinks he's going to prevail, he's lost his memory, he's a bit insane, but he has a task which he's going to power through and use that courage from Jules to overcome it. And having the underdog is going to make the audience root him all the way, even though he's going to have these antagonist turns and may seem evil at times. Because of this underdog style, the audience know what he's going through, they're going to back him all the way. And as I said, she's a bit more, she's young. People thought that Clarice wasn't going to be able to do it because compared to Dr. Hannibal Lecter in the film, she's much more young. She's a trainee, so she doesn't know all the bases yet. And this guy, as though he's very professional, will find it hard because of his lost memory and everything he's forgot to keep up with everything. So again, the underdog style will keep the audience entertained of our protagonist, and in some cases be able to relate to him, which is what our target audience want to see from our protagonist in our thriller film. Next we'll talk about the antagonist in the film, or otherwise known as the mysterious biker. So we wanted to make sure the antagonist would strike fear into the protagonist and the audience, so that people knew that he could bring trouble to a scene, and make scenes more tense, which he would be in. I took inspiration for this from Dr. Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs. This is because he is a calm man who brings intensity and intimidation from his intelligence and calm actions towards situations. His good posture and sadistic smile always brings a shiver to the audience, and as he visually looks scary, and so that he looks intimidating. I took inspiration from this, so I wanted my antagonist to look visually scary and intimidating, which is why I chose a guy who was big and tough to play this part. I wanted him to bring fear to the audience by the fear of the unknown, which is why I also used a biker helmet on him, and it always have him in the background of film. So having the biker helmet and having him in the background of film kind of gives that kind of mysterious feel to him. To know who's behind the helmet, why is he wearing a suit, why is he watching the protagonist. It's all unanswered questions, which adds to that more fear and that more intense feel to his character. And I've revealed a lot about his character already, but the basis of the film is to have that character completely unknown. So we want audiences to sit in the theatre and see that character and think, what is he doing? Which is the point of the film, which why it makes his character so intense. So though we've had to reveal a lot about his character, about him being friends with, or co-workers with, Jason the protagonist, he's actually being the protagonist trying to help Jason, good friends and that, we more or less wanted to keep that secret and have him very much, no one knew anything about him. Fear of the unknown is what we were trying to go out with his character. And by Dr. Hannibal Lecter, he's quite tall, he's quite good postured, it always brings that intense feel. So I chose an actor who visually looked big in both ways, a bit muscly, so that it just kind of give that kind of, this guy is dangerous, which is why I decided to use that character. And the costume I'll get onto a later date, but his costume always relates to that dark, blackness, mysterious feel to him with the biker helmet itself. So I also took inspiration from Sherlock Holmes, 2009 that is, with Robert Downey Jr. And the character in particular was Sherlock Holmes himself. Though Sherlock was a hero in the film, I took inspiration from our antagonist. Sherlock Holmes uses intelligence to suss out a situation and think of the best way to handle it, and takes his time before he goes out and do something. I took inspiration for this, which is why my mysterious biker is always in the background watching our protagonist from a distance, trying to think about the best way to take him on, and doesn't run straight into a fight. Instead, he waits to see if he will move first and tries to make sure he'll come out with a win. So this relates back to why he's always standing away. His character is very much intelligent. He thinks of a situation before he runs on in. He doesn't just go in firing all guns ahead. That's why he's observing our protagonist to realise which way to take him down And obviously he doesn't want to kill him because they used to be good friends, so he just wants to try and turn him back, but he can't just run straight in because that could put himself in danger. So by standing back, sussing out what's going on with him, it allows him to get a better understanding of the situation that is happening, and therefore allows him to more or less get the victory. And it also kind of, because of this, he stands in the background, which again adds to his mysterious posture, his appearance. He's still very fear of the unknown, so it all adds in as one. So finally I took inspiration from The Dark Knight Rises, and the character in particular, Batman. Again, Batman is the hero in the film, but there's aspects about him which could be turned into a more evil, villainous properties. Batman is very quiet and attacks people when they least expect it, and watches his enemies from afar before he goes in for the kill. We want our antagonist to remain silent for a lot of the film, as it creates mystery for his character, and also adds into what I mentioned about, which is always watching from afar and trying to observe the enemy and see what they will do. He will attack people from behind, and our antagonist will always follow his target, so he will always attack from behind, which seems more evil and a bit more cowardly, which also adds to the evil villain character at the opening 2 minutes of the film. So because he's always behind, and therefore he's going to try and attack people from behind to get the upper hand, it also seems a bit more cowardly, like a villain would do. And the silence, Batman is quite quiet in his film, and the silence kind of creates that eerie feel to the villain. So instead of having him speak lots of words, explaining a lot of things like a sadistic kind of Joker type feel, instead we're going for a much more silent Batman enemy, like Batman himself, which he's very much more quiet and relies more on action than he does on talking, which again all adds back up to this mysterious character. So overall, he's very much act like a villain, but he's actually a hero, which you'll find out later in the film. But we focus on the opening 2 minutes. He is the villain, therefore he's very silent, his posture is very fearful, and the character himself is very evil himself, from how scared he makes the protagonist and the audience, and also because how tough and big he looks. Overall, really, he just brings fear to the audience and protagonist, which is what we wanted in our villain, to strike fear into everybody that was watching the film. The last character that's featured in the opening 2 minutes of the film is the wife of Jason, also known as, her name is Katie, spelt with a Y, K-A-T-Y. Katie is the wife of the main protagonist, Jason. She's Jason's pride and joy, and he loves her more than anything in the world and will do anything to keep her safe. However, she is a damsel in distress and needs to be saved by the hero, in which this case is her husband Jason. Though he is the one who put her in danger in the first place, so there's kind of a bit of humour there, if you like, a bit of dark humour, I would say so myself. I took inspiration for her from the video game series Mario, and in particular the princess called Peach. Now obviously this wasn't a thriller film, but the inspiration came to me. Mario was a big part of my childhood growing up. He was my favourite video game character and video game series. So Peach gets captured by the villain Bowser in most Mario games, and she relies on Mario to save her. Though Katie does not rely on Jason to save her, I took inspiration that she would need a hero to save her, as she was scared of what might happen if no one saves her, much like Peach. Just to justify this, Katie herself doesn't rely on being saved by Jason, but much like Peach is fearful of what will happen if she doesn't escape, and because of how she doesn't really have the strength or the ability to fight out of it, she is reliant on someone to save her. Whereas Peach, the same as, relies on Mario to save her. However, Katie, because Jason is the one who put her there in his corrupt moment, doesn't think there'll be anyone to save her. Which kind of creates her character to be very down, quite scared, and she's quite a vulnerable woman, which is what we wanted in her character. I also took inspiration from Paul Sheldon from the film Misery. Though he is a man, in the film he always looks vulnerable and helpless when he is taken to Annie Wilkes' house, and is also... when he gets taken to Annie Wilkes' house, he looks very, very weak. So Katie has no experience of working on guns or fighting skills, so when she is captured she is in a lot of danger of being harmed. Therefore I took inspiration and made her look vulnerable without Jason. She looks vulnerable without Jason to show that the situation she is going to be in is very dangerous, and made her look weak, so that makes Jason look more tough and that he has to protect her because of the line of work he's in, so he has the skill base to save her. This makes her scenes much more intense because she has no experience, she can't defend herself, and has no hope, and doesn't think that Jason will save her because of everything that's gone on. To add to this, we will use a lot of high angle tilt down shots when her character is on screen to imply she is weak. So what I mean by this is in the flashback you'll see in the opening 2 minutes, she'll be shown with a high angle shot and possibly a tilt down if we can, to show that she's quite weak, and whereas Jason in the scene has a tilt up shot and maybe some high angle shots to show that he is the tough guy. And we're not saying that Katie is weak emotionally, we're talking about physically. If anything went wrong, he would be the one to step in because he has the skills to work a gun or to fight, whereas she doesn't really have any of those skills at all. She relies on him. So once again, this is kind of making her character sound very weak, which she is physically, but when we get onto the next bit, we'll realise that emotionally, she will actually be quite a strong character. So finally I took inspiration from Dr. Ellie Sattler from the movie Jurassic Park. Ellie Sattler is very intelligent and knows a lot about dinosaurs' health, which is her speciality. She is emotionally strong and does what is best for other people as well as herself. I took inspiration from this as Katie will be an intelligent woman, which the viewer will see from how she talks to Jason in flashbacks, and she will also be very kind to her husband and will do anything for him and her future child because she is pregnant. She is also strong emotionally and keeps calm throughout the whole situation and does not panic. She just tries out to work out how she's going to escape and avoid death. So by this we mean she's going to be physically weak. She's not very strong and she's not very fast and she doesn't have many skills. However, she is intelligent enough to suss out a situation much like the antagonist, and instead of rushing out, she thinks about what's the best way to avoid dying or avoid getting hurt to get out of a situation. And she's also going to be an intelligent woman, which links into this. She susses out a situation, her intelligence helps her evade everything, but she's also very kind. She'll do anything for anybody, and we'll see the affection she gives her husband will show how much she cares and relies on him in that first flashback in the opening 2 minutes. So overall, she will be much more affectionate to him than he is to her, but that's showing that she much more relies on him than he does on her, because he's strong, he doesn't need saving, whereas she might in a situation like that. But I felt having her emotionally strong builds to her character, because I felt like everything I was saying before made her look weak and very down, whereas this kind of brings her up. So yes, she may have to rely on Jason for the physical part, but if they were a team, Jason may rely on her to think of an intelligent way out of something and give him his motivation to keep going with his job. Which you'll see in the flashback when she asks how her day went. She tries to keep his emotions high, keeps him happy, so he's motivated throughout the film. So overall I took inspiration from many different thriller films, and the reason I did this is because I wanted about 3 characters for each of my characters, which stood out to me, which I could blend together to make our characters much more unique. Because if you took inspiration from just one character, they can look very similar, whereas I'm trying to make all my characters in my film unique compared to every other actor or characters that have been before. I also tried to kind of mix emotions to make, as I said, a more interesting, unique character. And overall I think this has really helped to create in-depth characters in our thriller film. And because of the in-depth storyline as well, they all fit in together. And I think because of these characters that I could use, I could kind of, if I add all these inspiration characters together, we can have a much more in-depth, thoughtful characters in our thriller film.